It's the Orange Power Pod, and I'm joined by one of the all-time greats in Oklahoma State basketball history and now a member of the Cowboy basketball coaching staff, Keiton Page. It's been quite a journey for you. I mean, it all started, you were recruited by Sean Sutton.
Yeah.
And then it's just carried on from there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what a run. I mean, how many people get a chance to do that? To play, be one of the all-time greats, and then basically follow that up by being on the staff for, you know, you were talking about 15 years now, basically.
Yeah.
You know, so that's quite a run. It's getting close to 15 years.
Making me feel old.
Oh, no, you're not.
Yeah, no, I've been, I guess the word is, I've been extremely blessed and fortunate. Obviously grew up being a Cowboy fan and dreamed of playing here. And like you said, got the opportunity from Sean Sutton. Unfortunately, didn't get to play for him, but it got an unbelievable opportunity to play for Coach Ford. Built an unbelievable relationship with him, had good 4 years for him, and had great teammates along the way, and then jumped on staff with him. And then after Coach Ford, obviously got a year with Coach Underwood, and then got a stint with Coach Boynton, and now been fortunate enough to stick around with Coach Lutz. So my coaching tree's kind of grown, and I've got to pick from all those guys, and a lot of great coaches, a lot of great coaching minds.
Yeah, it's a big, wide coaching tree, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So all of those guys are different. So I'll put you on the spot here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's start with Coach Ford. What was maybe one or two things you took from him as a coach that carry with you today? We'll kind of walk through these guys.
And they all are, but his competitiveness was on a whole nother level, and it didn't matter if you were in the film room and talking about X's and O's, like he was going to compete to see why that action was better than another action. I mean, he just made everything into a competition, and I think that goes from his playing days at Kentucky and playing for Rick Pitino. But he was one of the most competitive dudes I've ever been around. Late night shoot arounds when we'd go into the gym, he was always jumping in and jumping into the shooting competitions with us and the guys and showing that he could still shoot. But he was the most competitive guy I've ever been around.
It always struck me that with game prep, sort of scheming a game plan. You know, he had great success against Kansas several years.
Yeah.
He could come up with a way to sort of give this team an opportunity to win. It seemed like he was a really good schemer.
Yeah, there was no doubt. And he spent obviously unlimited amount of time on game prep, and then got us prepared as well. But he had something going into every game, some kind of tweak, some kind of action, some kind of defensive scheme that he felt would give us an opportunity that was a little bit different every single game.
And then 1 year with Brad Underwood.
Yeah.
What jumped out with him?
Yeah, just like his tenacity. He was aggressive offensively, aggressive defensively, and his practices were ran that way. But he was very, very high intense, if you would say, very high intense, and just aggressive in everything he did.
You know, I think back on it, and I'm sure you do as well. That team with Coach Underwood started 0-6 in conference play and really struggled defensively, and then he completely changed in mid-year. Do you ever think back on, number one, how unique that was, and number two, let's be honest, even for the greatest coaches, to completely go 180 in the middle of the year, that takes some confidence and some courage.
There's no doubt. Not only that, I mean, it shows what a great coach he was to be able to adapt, but to adapt from something that he had such great success with. I mean, coming from Stephen F. Austin, the up-the-line aggressive defense had dominated in his years there and had won at, obviously an extremely high level. And to go from that to this level and understand that maybe that wasn't the perfect fit for here and in the Big 12, and be able to flip that. I think it was 6 games into the Big 12 season.
It was.
And then just turn the season around just like that just kind of shows you how good of a coach he is just to be able to adapt like that.
Okay, Mike Boynton.
Yeah, God, I could go on and on about Coach Mike, but I think just his balance. He always preached balance in everything you do, and in practices, games, and life. And obviously you went through it for 7 years of his crazy diet in February, but I mean, he preached balance in everything you do, and so I think that's something that I took from him, and just your everyday life is just, coaching, your job, your work life, your marriage. He just taught balance in everything he does.
And so finally, the present day, Steve Lutz.
Yeah, I mean, I would just have to say, obviously I hadn't been here with him for a long time, but from day one, just the first day I got to meet with him in the office, I could tell that he was about work, and he doesn't leave any stone left unturned, no matter what it is. If it's game prep, if it's recruiting, if it's traveling, he's very detail oriented in everything he does, and there's a reason for everything he does, and there's a process to everything he does, and I would just say, I mean, he's one of the most relentless workers I've ever been around.
You know, it's interesting. It seems like that, as really good coaches often do, he asks a lot, but there seems to be, he has his own way of sort of putting on the brakes. And I'm watching that as the season goes along. he seems to read the mood of the team pretty well. Yeah. And as we get deeper into the season, to me, that's becoming more and more obvious. He has a way of doing that. Sometimes early in the year, you're not certain exactly what's going on, but as the time has gone along, do you notice that change as well?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And then obviously just picking his brain about his time at Corpus Christi, his time at Western Kentucky, it's like what I said previously. He's got a process. Like, he's got a process to it, and he obviously has been a head coach now. I mean, he's been 3 years before getting here, and it's worked. And so he's got a process to how this thing plays out, and he sticks to that process.
Obviously, you're one of the greatest players to ever step on Eddie Sutton Court and play in Gallagher-Iba Arena. So I'm curious, game's changed a little bit. I'm not talking about NIL or any of that. That's a whole different discussion. But just the way the game is played is different. Yeah. How would that translate to you now? If you were playing now, would you have had to adapt to any extent? You're such a good player. I'm not sure if you would have, but how would have, if Keiton Page were playing today, what would that look like? I kind of played how the game has kind of evolved, but I mean, I don't know if it could help me much because I shot a bunch of threes anyway. but well, now, you made a lot of
now the philosophy of the game, and 90% of coaches believe in layups at the rim or three-point shots. I wasn't getting a whole lot of layups at the rim, so I don't know if my three-point attempts could have went up, but the game probably would have favored me in that way. Is just trying to get up a lot of threes and layups at the rim. Yeah, I was wondering about that because really it does favor you. Yeah. And in a lot of teams like ours, I think about Coach Lutz wanting to get out in transition. Yeah, no doubt. Holy cow. Yeah, I could just see you knocking down transition threes in the fast break, just one after the other. Yeah, now that'd be fun for you. Now Coach is pretty particular on bad shots, and I took a few of those, so I might have got the a couple times to come out. But I think the way the game's played now would have definitely favored the way I played, obviously, and shooting a lot of threes. I'll be honest, I think he could have played in any style. Hey, as you think back about, okay, gosh, I've been here all these years, I've played, I've coached, I've worked with all these coaches. When you have a moment to think about that, what runs through your mind about just, gosh, this has been really cool? Yeah, obviously it's like I said, it's been a dream come true for me. Obviously this was the place I wanted to play. Never did I imagine that I would be sitting here at 35 having an interview with you and still on the coaching staff here in Oklahoma, or here in Stillwater. But it's been unbelievable for me and my family. Obviously my wife, she grew up here in Oklahoma, a basketball family herself. Her dad's a longtime high school basketball coach. She grew up watching the Cowboys as well, and for us to get to raise our kids here in Stillwater and grow up here and just be around the people, I think that's what makes this place so special, is all the people. And so for me, it's just been people come and go through here, but it's been the people that's most important to me. Well, and your dad is known as one of the great high school coaches that has worked in Oklahoma in the modern era. Yeah. What did you learn from him that's carried you through all these years? Yeah, I think it goes back to the same thing I preached about Coach Lutz. He preached the same thing, was just work. And obviously growing up as a kid, looking at him and my mom, he was 5'9", 5'10". My mom's 5'2" on a good day. And so I think he really instilled early on in me, like, hey, you're gonna have to outwork everybody. Like, you're not gonna wake up and be a 6'4" shooting guard. Like, you're gonna be 5'9", and you're gonna have to do something different than everybody else, and that's gonna be shooting. And so me and him got in the gym I started going to camps when I was 3 years old. He put me in Oklahoma Christian Dan Hayes camps, and I remember we started then when I was 3, and it never stopped. And he was just like, listen, this is how, if you want to continue this dream of playing college basketball. And it got to where I was in, like, I think my first game was 4th grade when I came here and watched videos. It was actually Victor Williams hit the buzzer beater on that. Oh my gosh, if you can get a better one than that, it's your first one. Yeah. And so from that point on, it was kind of like, hey, if you think you're going to play here, like, look at everybody else out there on that floor. Like, you're not going to be that big, you're not going to be that athletic, you got to do something different. And so we just worked and worked and worked, and I think that's kind of what he instilled the most in me. You know, in some ways, obviously you were recruited by Sean, but you played for Travis, who was also undersized, who could really shoot. Yeah. Do you think that benefited you, that you had a head coach that could totally understand what your situation was? Yeah, there's no doubt. In the first meeting I ever had with Coach Ford, he said the exact same thing. He was like, listen, man, it's not going to be easy for you. I went through this exact same thing. You're undersized, you're unathletic. He was blunt. He was like, you're unathletic. He was like, you are going to have to absolutely live in here. And he was like, the good thing is I'll live in here too. And he's like, and we'll do this thing together. And between Coach Ford and Byron Eaton my freshman year, that was the two best things that could happen to me. Keiton, congratulations on a great run. Yep, I appreciate your time, Dave. Thanks. That's Keiton Page on the Orange Power Pod.